Hi, I'm Dr. Matthew Clay. I'm an assistant professor of teacher education at Fort Hays State University. And as part of this project, I'm going to be sharing teaching methods for environmental education. And so in this video, we're going to just very briefly get some big picture ideas as well as a little bit of introduction. So the topics that we're going to explore throughout all these videos, in addition to the introduction, we're going to look at the theoretical foundations of environmental ed. So really, where is environmental ed coming from? A framework for expansive place through environmental education, so making place more. How to take that concept of expansive place and put it into practice. How will we structure lessons for environmental education? Questioning strategies we can use in environmental education, the role and nature of assessment. And then finally, I do want to finish up with thinking about what environmental education means in the standardized era of education, especially in K-12 schools. So my background, my role now is that I'm an assistant professor of teacher education. And for the most part, I teach science methods courses for both elementary and secondary, and at both the undergraduate and graduate level. I myself am a former middle school and high school science teacher. My background was really in biology and earth science, and my science background is very much as an ecologist. And in my role now, a lot of my research is focused on the relationship between education and place and that role and connection. But right now, that's dealt a lot with exploring using 360 video as a tool to use field teaching techniques in the classroom. So it's involved a lot of work of going out and capturing these videos and then developing teaching techniques to then bring those into the classroom. So some of the big picture goals of my portion of this is to first really focus on how environmental education is different from other content areas. I think in some ways it might be easy to view environmental education as just an extension of perhaps a content area you already teach, or perhaps its own content area. But in a lot of ways, it's very different from the other content that we teach in middle schools and high schools. Next, a lot of the big picture goals and intentions of environmental education, essentially why folks enter environmental education as a field, why it's something to pursue, conflict with a lot of the prevailing perspectives on education. So a lot of the structure and how K-12 tends to be done, especially at sort of a policy and both in the structure and practice within schools, conflicts with what environmental education really needs. And I also really want to make the point that the stakes of environmental education are high, right? The environmental challenges we're facing, as you all well know, are very prominent. They're very serious. They're very pressing. And it's really rather obvious of what the consequences could be for having generations coming up that really don't understand what it is they're facing, right? And so there's sometimes in education, there's things I feel like are pretty low stakes. Also, my personal bias, they seem like low stakes, right? So if a child gets out of high school not understanding Shakespeare, to me, that feels a lot lower stakes than not understanding some of these environmental challenges, right? And especially in terms of our future as a society. So a couple things to sort of keep in mind when we take this idea of environmental education and we look at it as something we're going to do within K-12 schools. We really need to be honest about what is this setting within schools we're going into. First of all, the current landscape of education is very metric focused, right? It is very focused on what it can measure, or at least what it thinks it can measure, right? There are sometimes that there are things that we act as though we can measure, even if those measures maybe don't entirely hold up. And right now, education is really viewed primarily as a private good. And what I mean by that is it's discussed in terms of how it benefits individuals, not necessarily as a public good, as which would be how it benefits society. So we talk a lot of things that a lot of ways about education helping students get better careers or earn more, right? That's a private good, right? If I learn more so that I can have a be more gainfully employed, that's a private good. If I'm learning toward being a better citizen, which benefits, of course, me, but all those around me, that's a public good. And right now, education is very focused on the private good. And related to that, there's this heavy focus on career readiness, right? So a lot of times, a lot of things in schools right now are very focused on how does this translate or how is this applicable to career readiness? And so that's just the landscape that we're in, right? Good, bad, that's where we're at. And I think it's important to be honest in recognizing that. Now, as we move on, the goal is not to ignore that current landscape, not to be sort of delusional about where we are, but to be honest about where the opportunities for growth are, and or how we can adapt and work with what's there to meet the needs of students, or where we really need to change practices from a lot of what's currently in use or sort of the current prevailing narrative of education practice. And so I'm very much looking forward to sharing and our journey for the rest of this component and then the next several videos.